church family. In preparing for my sermon this last week, I came across something interesting that I assumed would be part of my sermon, but then it just didn't end up fitting in. I feel, however, that it's still something I'd like to get out there into our congregation for us to think about, so I'm making this one more thing video. What I learned in preparation for the sermon was a story about Dietrich Bonhoeffer and his underground seminary. For those of you who aren't aware of Bonhoeffer, he was a pastor, a theologian, and professor in Germany during the rise of Hitler and Nazism. Bonhoeffer was part of a group known as the Confessing Church. They were people who stood up against the overtaking of the German church by the Nazi government. They refused to stand by and allow the church to get caught up in the racism and violence of the nation. These brave individuals made their stand in many different ways. One of the ways that Bonhoeffer stood up for the church was to lead a seminary to train pastors for these churches. This preacher's seminary, as they called them, ended up in a remote village of Finkenwalde, in an old rundown school building that had been shut down by the government years before. In this space, Bonhoeffer taught classes on theology and church life and created an intentional community with his small group of ordinands. This continued until the seminary was shut down by the Gestapo in August of 1937. One of the things that I learned this week about this seminary speaks to our reading from James and the call to control one's tongue, a truly difficult task. In his biography of Bonhoeffer, one of Bonhoeffer's closest friends, Edhard Bethgage, said that in Bonhoeffer's seminary, he really only had one rule related to the conduct within the community. And that was that no one was to speak about another ordinand in that person's absence, or to tell that person about it afterwards when such a thing did happen. Bethgage goes on to say that while this was sometimes a difficult rule to follow, the lessons learned from it, particularly when a member of the community struggled to follow it and had to fess up, taught these seminary students more than Bonhoeffer's wonderful sermons and lectures. Can you imagine this kind of the impact this rule would have had on their community? Can you imagine knowing that no one else is talking about you behind your back? Imagine the sense of security and trust that would bring about. Imagine the discipline it would have required. Imagine the joy it must have brought in their life together. I wonder what would happen in the world if more of us committed to this way of being. This commitment to do our best to not talk about each other, but rather to talk to each other. While this might be hard to do, it surely would help to bring about the beloved community that Jesus initiated and calls us to co-create. Join me in thinking about how we might work to control our tongues in this important way. Grace and peace to you, my friends. God bless.